What's up? Welcome to the very first perk shop. So today I want to explain a little bit about what it looks like to do a perk shop and what we're going to do. You're definitely going to want to grab a journal. We're going to go through and identify an old limiting belief or an old story that is currently holding you back. We're going to trace it back to its root and kind of pull those roots out. We're going to challenge the belief, and then we're going to flip it. And that's like the perk part, where we perk it back up to a better belief that allows you to actually go out into the world and live a life that is more aligned with what you really want. This whole first month is going to be about kind of shedding the old parts of you that aren't serving you anymore and stepping into your future self, highest self, favorite self, a version of you that you know deep down you can become, but there are things kind of blocking you from that. When I was learning energy healing, I did so much shedding, and I remember feeling like, wow, this is like, I cannot believe how much has to go. Looking back now, I can see how important it was, and I consider that version of myself to be one that I built out of survival and protection. There were habits and things that I was doing that I felt like were serving me, but they were not. And they were actually, like, quite honestly, they were keeping me separated from the life I really wanted. The most abundant, the most creative, the most playful version of me was being ripped away by that old version of myself. Okay, so let's jump into it. I want you to pull out your journal, and we're going to ask you I'm going to ask you a few questions to kind of just like show you the pieces of yourself that you might be outgrowing. So, the question at the top of the page that I would write down is, what version of me am I ready to outgrow? If there's anything that like you instantly think of, I definitely want you to write that down. And then I'll give you some of my examples and then like just some of the other ones that I've written down that aren't necessarily mine. Common versions of us that hold us back are the versions of us that people please, procrastinate, shrink to make other people feel better, settles for something that's not actually really good enough for them, the version that waits for permission or validation from other people. For me personally, I had a lot of habits of overgiving, fixing problems for other people, and it really took up a lot of my energy. Being everybody's therapist kind of a thing. If you have any of those, like these could be versions of you that you're ready to outgrow. There could be something completely different. So write those down. And then I want you to think about what beliefs are associated with those that keep that alive in you. So if you're a people pleaser, there's this underlying belief that if you disappoint people, you're going to lose love, or you're going to lose maybe like a sense of control. If we're people pleasing, sometimes we're doing it to get something back. So, maybe you feel like you're not going to get that anymore if you're people pleasing. Another one is that it could feel safer to stay small if you have been bullied or people were rude to you or stopped including you when you were bold or when you were your most shiny, bright self. I also feel like a lot of us feel the need to prove our worth. This sounds dark and deep, but if you were like neglected by a parent that you really wanted their attention, it's very easy to feel the need to prove your worth through perfectionism, high achievement. And what we really need to turn that into is self-validation, because nobody's going to give us the validation that we need to feel that we're worthy except for ourselves. So these are some of the possible beliefs that go with that. Go into the things that you wrote down and find out what belief behind it is keeping that version of you alive. I feel like in the future, I might try to do these live so that we can like talk back and forth on, what you wrote down and how we can flip it in real life. But for now, I'm just going to record them on video. So if you want to leave any in the comments and like talk about them, absolutely do that. And I'll respond back like, hey, let's flip this belief to that. But it's a little hard when I just do a video of it like this. So now we know for the next time. I'm just giving you guys time to write down. You can fast forward it a little bit if you're bored. Okay. The next thing we want to do is find out where it came from. So when you think about, just pick one of these beliefs for now. I want you to journal this. Where did you learn this from? Who taught you that? Or who was the first person that made you believe that you need to prove yourself? Or the first person that made you believe that you needed to be X, Y, and Z to get their love? What experience also made that feel necessary? And I would say like most commonly, this is going to come from childhood where your survival needs were being met. So you felt like you had to do it to literally survive and be in your parents' house, kind of a thing. It can also be like a social group thing, especially around high school age, middle school age, where it just feels like life or death if you don't fit in and make people feel good about who you are. And then I want you to ask if this was you trying to protect yourself, or is this actually true? And I'm going to say that 9 times out of 10, this is probably going to be your protection part, your survival part, trying to keep your belonging alive so that you could fit in or get fed or whatever it was through that period of your life. But it's not necessarily true for you, especially not now. If you're having a hard time remembering the first time you felt this, I'm going to have you go through just like a quick mini meditation. I think this is helpful even if you can remember, because what I want to do is show you where you feel this in your body. There's going to be a particular sensation that comes up. It could feel like tightness. It could be like your stomach dropping. And if you can start to remember this sensation when you go back into your regular life and these habits and thoughts start to come up again, and this belief is trying to hold you back again, you'll start to feel it in your body. And then you can be like, no, I don't choose this anymore. So go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath in. And slowly let it go. Place one hand on your heart and one hand on your stomach. Take another deep breath. And now I want you to ask yourself, when was the first time that you remember feeling this belief? The first moment maybe you felt that you weren't enough, or you have to earn love, it wasn't safe to fully express yourself, you need to stay small. Don't need to force it. Just allow your body to answer. Where do you feel this? Who was there? How old were you? What happened? And what did that younger version of you decide was true in that moment? Now that you know it was not actually the truth, it was just you trying to survive and get through that part of your life, I want you to see that younger version of you and either reach out or just talk to them, hold them, and hug them. Tell them what you wish you would have heard in that moment instead. You were never hard to love. You had to adapt and protect yourself, but you don't have to stay there anymore. Take one more deep breath and remind yourself that you can honor this feeling and where it came from, but it does not have to be in the driver's seat anymore. Throw it in the back seat. Now, as we want to continue separating this from your mind and believing that it is true and that it's like the only way for you to live and think, I want you to think about who you would be if this belief didn't exist for you. Have you ever seen evidence of another person not believing in that? Not thinking that they have to be a people pleaser or not thinking that they have to overachieve. It's nice to see evidence in your real life, but even if you don't, obviously I'm a very spiritual person. So what I will do is I will ask my spirit team, like, hey, show me evidence that this exists somewhere so I know it's possible for me too. And usually within, 24 hours to a week, I will see evidence of that new belief in my life, whether it is for me or somebody around me. And it helps me concrete is the word I want to use, like concrete that belief in of like, okay, this is possible. Now, based on all of the beliefs that you've written down for this, I want you to write an opposite list that is the version of you want to become. So you can either like take the opposite and flip it on its head. So like if you're a people pleaser, you can be a self pleaser, you know? And the thing is you might start to feel like uncomfy feelings because you're going to be like, well, what if that's selfish? And specifically for my people pleasers, technically, if you think about it, it is selfish to people please because it's a form of manipulation, and none of us want to believe that. You know, it's a hard thing to see in ourselves, but being very straightforward and open and honest with people allows them to meet our needs, allows us to be authentic, and it helps us find people who are relationally a better match for us naturally instead of trying to force something to fit that's not working. So if you feel selfish when you're writing these down, all I'm trying to say is don't, because it's actually just helping you find the right version of you for you, the right version of you for other people. You know, if you're an overachiever, the opposite of that is an underachiever. And I get it if you don't like that, but we can always find the neutral middle ground between all of these two. It's like sometimes I prioritize other people's feelings, sometimes I prioritize mine, sometimes I work really hard, sometimes I definitely allow myself rest. You know, like you want to find a balance between these. Some other things that, you know, might be on your list of the version of you want to become is instead of being stressed out, you want to be at peace. You know, instead of being sucked into everybody else's problems and life and fixing everything for other people, you want to be magnetic and having fun and playing. Instead of feeling lost and lazy, you want to feel disciplined. You know, instead of feeling financially afraid, you want to feel secure and wealthy. You know, whatever those feelings are that you want to be confident, healthy, in your full expression, not afraid to be seen. And just write all these things down so you know what you're aiming for. And as you're finished writing that, I want you to ask yourself if your future self embodied all of those qualities. What does she believe that you don't yet? What belief systems does she have? What does she do every day? How does she take care of herself? What does she prioritize? A couple more things to ask about that version of you is what does she tolerate less of? What choices does she make on a weekly basis? How does she walk into a room? What habits does she protect? And what does she no longer apologize for? And then what we want to do is with all of those beliefs, like kind of how we just flipped the behaviors from people pleasing to being more selfish. I want you to give yourself affirmations that allow you to believe that. And not only like say these affirmations to yourself, write them down, excuse me, maybe hang one up in your room. I use an app called Think Up. I'm not affiliated with them or anything. You can just like record your own voice and it plays music over it. And so I'll record my own and listen to it every night before bed. Whatever it is to start really changing and shifting your beliefs so that you start paying attention to, you know, opportunities and evidence of it being true in your life. So if one of your beliefs is like you have to earn love through people pleasing and doing what other people want, you can flip that over to I'm worthy of love as I am when I'm expressing myself honestly and being truthful about my needs. If you feel like you earn love through fixing things for other people, you can say I am worthy of love without me fixing other people's problems. If you feel like you have to earn love from people or have to be an overachiever, you are worthy of being loved without performing, without achieving, just as you are. And really starting to dig deep and find like affirmations that allow you to feel worthy without all of the layers of protection and survival that you've built. So we want to remove all of those this week and add in these new beliefs of like, actually, I'm enough just as I am. I'm enough without all of these behaviors. Next week, I'm going to give you guys a very specific meditation where you can like lay down and listen, and you'll visualize your future self, kind of stepping into that version of your future self. If I could be honest with you, like, you don't become that version of you by adding in a bunch of new things, a bunch of new habits that you're just going to burn out on. You become that version of you by letting go of everything that you truly are not and learned that you had to be. I want you to just like take a deep breath, put your hand on your heart, and out loud with me, you can repeat this after me. Say, I release the version of myself that was built for survival. An optional like energy practice is to like rub off the energy. Say, I release the version of me built for survival. And then you can open up your arms, or you can just continue with your hand on your heart, and you can say, I welcome the version of me built for joy, peace, and purpose. And over the next few days, like now that you're starting to pay attention to this, you'll start to see more of your habits that aren't serving you, and you'll notice where you could choose to step into your future self a little bit more. And with all things, I'm really big on doing things gently. So, if there's a decision that you need to make that's really scary, or a conversation that you need to have that's really, really scary, I don't know that I would start with that. I would say start with something easier, like express yourself or push yourself out there in a different way, so that your nervous system starts to get comfortable and trust that it's safe for me to express myself in the big ways. That way you're like strengthening. It's kind of like working out. Like if you were to go to the gym, you wouldn't try to lift 200 pounds on your very first day, right? I don't want you guys to do that mentally either. When we're shifting our belief systems, we want to start small with little things so that we can grow that strength over time for the big things. And the only other thing that I want to add to this is that because it's not live, it's a little bit trickier for me to do this. But what you can do with some of these beliefs is go through them as a whole. And what I mean by that is say, okay, find out what your piece is. You find out what the identity is. You trace it back, and then you change it, and you can say it all in one sentence, and it kind of helps people in their brain really reorganize the thought. So for example, you can say, I learned to shrink because somebody made me feel bad for being myself when I was 10. But now I know that that wasn't actually the truth. It was a projection from them of a part of themselves that they're not comfortable with. I was just a kid trying to survive and fit into the world around me. But I now know that my authenticity is a superpower. So you can go through everything that you wrote down and piece it together in that way and build a story, because our brains process stories really well. So that's your PerkShop for this month. I am so excited to share the visualization and meditation with you guys. And then we will have a special channeled reading specifically about this conversation for you and everybody that joins this group before that specific channeled reading. Okay, I will see you guys soon. Love you very much. And go step into your future self today.